Welcome to another OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. My name is Brandon Drum. I'm here with Parker Thune, and I look like death because we have a 4-month-old or 3-month-old in the house, and she's been sick. So I apologize for the bags under the eyes and the look like I'm stoned. I am not. I am tired.
Good news is nobody that is ingesting this podcast via Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any other audio streaming platform has any awareness of that. It's only
Very,
the YouTube viewers that have to deal
yeah.
with your mug.
Yeah. Oh man, I can't even open. I'm looking at myself like I can't even open my eyes. It's crazy. Um, all right. Um, so Parker, first off, you had a phone call. We have to get into this. And you had a phone call before we got on air and you were talking to a source.
Yeah.
Freshman getting indoctrinated into the world of Schmitty.
Yeah, it's real, Brandon. It's real. Sounds like
Yeah.
some of those boys are having a tough time with it. But we would expect nothing different, right? Not only is it Schmitty, but it's SEC Schmitty now. So
SEC, baby.
those
Yeah.
youngins show up and they haven't been adequate. Because I mean, how do you adequately prepare for Jerry Schmitty's or from Jerry Schmidt's workout regimen? So they show up.
You go to
And
IMG would probably be the best bet.
IMG probably would be the best bet, which is why I think
Mhm.
when David Stone and Jaden Jackson get back from the Polynesian Bowl, they'll probably have about as easy a time as anyone. Still won't be easy by any stretch of the
No.
imagination, but it's tough to adequately prepare yourself for Jerry Schmidt's workout regimen. And in the sounds of things, it would definitely seem that these freshmen are getting the full Schmitty experience thus far, and they've only been on campus for a week.
It kind of when you said that, it kind of have you ever watched the SEC shorts? Have you seen the one the Auburn Experience where they like go on like this ride? And I mean, it, like sits them back in 2010. And you're like, "Woo, let's do this ride again." He's like, "There's nobody in line. Let's press it again." It's like, "Are you sure you wanted the guy's like the guy running? He's like, you sure you want to do that?" He's like, "Yeah." And they it goes do, 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 and it goes to like 2014, and they come back and they're like, "Oh my God, I don't know. Do we need to do this again?" And they do it, and it's like a roller coaster ride, right? Like it's just up and down if you're an Auburn fan. And I think that's essentially Schmitty. He's going to break you. He's going to break you, but he also does a really good job, I think, building the players back up. He runs it kind of like a boot camp. And as a former boot camper trainee back in the day, they break the crap out of you, like to where you feel like you are nothingness. And all you can do is lean on each other. And that's where you become a unit. A basically that's what we call each other. We had our unit, we were 322, whatever. And the freshmen, they're gonna come together because that's all they have is each other, right? Right now, because a lot of the major players, they're just now getting back and they don't have to go through the indoctrination that these freshmen have to go through, right? Like these freshmen they're getting torn down, as Venable says, to the studs. And then you build them back up. And so right now is the worst part for them. A month from now, they're going to think it's nothing, but it's getting through the first 3-4 weeks is the hard part. Just like a boot camp, it's the first 4 weeks suck. 4 through 8, awesome. You get treated like a regular human being. And it's different. It's way different. And I think that's how Schmitty does things. Like he's going to make sure you know he's the boss and that all you have is each other. So you better start leaning on each other and becoming a brotherhood and a team and teammates. Because if you don't, it's going to stay this way. And I kind of like that. That's old school. That's old
Yeah.
school. And Schmitty's old school.
That's the way it has to be too, because the transfer portal is a resource for these guys. I say resource. It's a
Yep.
very loosely applied term. It can also be an easy way out for guys these days.
Correct.
But having a guy like Schmitty running your winter workouts is a real easy way. Like that, you need to separate the wheat from the chaff. right? You
Yeah.
need to be able to have an idea of who can crack it at Oklahoma and who can't. And you're going to get, yeah, maybe not a definitive answer, but you'll get a pretty good idea rather quickly here based on how these winter workout sessions go of who is capable of putting in the work and maintaining the focus and keeping the foot on the gas such that they're going to be able to put themselves in a place competitively to potentially see the field in year one, and who needs to be broken and broken and broken again before they're ready to play football at the University of Oklahoma and in the SEC.
Hmm. And look, there's going to be guys that come out of this looking like Adonises and just changing their bodies, and they're going to mature faster than they thought they would. And I'm not just talking physically, I'm talking mentally, like their ability to sift through the BS and the trash and come out on top, still looking like they just, you know, came through the cleaners, and they're nice and shiny and like a brand new car. And there's going to be some that are going to be stuck in the muck, and it's going to take them a year and a half to get themselves out of it. But again, that's where these teammate things come from. And I love this. I love this part of the year. I know it's quote the off season, but we really get to hear a lot of some cool behind the scenes, some neat stories a lot of times where sources will come up to you and be like, man, that kid, when he showed up, we didn't think he was going to make it. And now he's the leader of the pack. Like and you get to see these transformations. And
Yep.
the other part is when they do coaches stations starting in February.
Oh boy. Kind of to your point there, one of my favorite stories from recent years of a guy that had a similar turnaround, if you will, was Nick Benito.
Yeah.
And he was somebody that, by his own admission, was literally on the precipice of entering the transfer portal after his freshman year at Oklahoma. In December 2018, they had played in the Orange Bowl. Nick Benito's from Fort Lauderdale. He did not want to go back to Oklahoma. I'll tell
Nope.
you that much. He did not want to get on that plane back to Oklahoma.
His dad made him.
Yep.
His dad made it.
And
Mm-hmm.
obviously, 11 months later, he's sealing the largest comeback victory in the history of the program with an interception against Baylor. The following year in 2020, he's announcing his presence on the scene with authority as one of the finest edge rushers in college football. By 2021, he's an all Big 12 guy. And by April of 2022, he's off the board on day 2 of the NFL draft.
Yep. That is one of the cooler turnarounds. And there's been a lot of them over the years. DeMarco Murray is another one that people don't even ever talk about anymore because his career was so ballyhooed when he was at Oklahoma. But if you ever listen to Bob Stoops talk about it, like and listen to Coach Murray talk about it, his career was he did not start out very glamorous because he thought he was going to show up. He thought, man, you all saw what I did, at Bishop Gorman in Nevada, right? Play this national schedule and I'm killing everybody. And he showed up and he was just getting reamed and he was making mistake after mistake after mistake. And they redshirted him because of that. And everybody, remember, when he came in, everybody's like, oh, this is going to be the Adrian Peterson, DeMarco Murray show. It was not. It was the Alan Patrick, Adrian Peterson show. And DeMarco redshirted. But in 2007, he came out guns blazing against Tulsa. And after that, it was that run against Texas. And then he became the best freshman running back in the country, only to dislocate his kneecap on a onside kick against Texas Tech, which also kind of foreshadowed kind of the awkwardness of his career with injuries moving forward. But in 2009 and 2010, he was able to stay healthy and he became if not the best running back in the country, one of the top 2 or 3 running backs in the country. and the rest is history. NFL, whatever, NFL MVP, all that at Dallas. And but he was one of those guys that if you talk to Stoops and you talk to DeMarco himself, he'll tell you didn't think he was going to make it. Like first year, like it was that bad. So I love these stories because there's so many of them, and we don't talk about a lot of them. I mean, Orlando Brown's another one. Came in out of shape. They didn't think much of him. He was a late signee because he didn't make it as far as what the classes he needed to get into Tennessee. OU signed him. It was a big surprise. He shows up. He's out of shape. Doesn't do much. Red shirts as a redshirt freshman. He's a All-American freshman and a stud in 2015. So I love those stories. I love those stories, and you're gonna get to hear these with this 24 class as well. So down the road, they're gonna be pretty neat. But anyways, offensive line transfer.
Some news on that front that was first reported to members at OU
Yep.
Insider on Thursday afternoon, courtesy of yourself, Brandon. So
Yeah.
I'll let you introduce this.
Yeah. So I've known Garen Hatchet for 5, 6 years now. And we've kept in touch a little bit throughout his career. Not a lot, but a little bit, enough that the second he hit the portal, I hit him up and I was like, yo, like, are you gonna go to Oklahoma? He was like,
Wow.
well, they're up there. They're up there. Yeah, I was joking with him. Like, because Oklahoma was his second choice. And he flat told me, he's like, dude, Oklahoma was my second choice. So yeah, if they come after me, they're gonna be high on my board. 24 hours later, he hits me up. He's like, hey man, like I talked to Venables, I talked to Beanbo last night. My brother did as well, but I'm the one that's going to be taking the visit here in the next few days. So we waited a bit and, you know, put it out there yesterday, I believe, yesterday afternoon. And yeah, I, they're talking to other schools. I think that's the Hatchet brothers are talking to other schools. So the weird part is that OU hasn't offered his brother yet. And I'll make it pretty clear talking to people in Hatch's camp, they don't think that's a deal breaker, but it's different, right? Garen has, I think, 2 years, I believe, because he didn't he redshirt.
He has 2 years of
Yeah, he's got
eligibility
two
left.
years of
Yes.
eligibility. Okay, so he's got 2 years of eligibility. He started 4 games before getting injured here and there at Washington last year, and they are the Joe Moore Award winning, which is goes to the top offensive line in the country. Offensive line at Washington, and that offensive line is just dispersed. So it's kind of crazy that you look at that and you're like, Coach Fish shows up and everybody's gone. He showed up to Washington thinking I'm going to have this really good offensive line returning. Nope, they dipped out.
Kalen
And
DeBoer is kind of finding much the same reality at Alabama
yes, he
right
is.
now. You waltz in and you think everything's going to be rosy, everybody's going to love you. And it's not necessarily a situation like the SpongeBob gif where he's standing in the middle of the room as it's burning around him and he's trying to blow the fire out. It's not necessarily that level of panic and
It's
disaster
close.
in either Tuscaloosa or Seattle.
It's
But
close.
what both those guys have found is that when there is a new sheriff in town, not everybody wants to stick around.
Well, Tucson's having the same issues. They were thought to be the top team in the Big 12 next year. Jed Fish leaves, and that roster outside of Fafita and I believe McMillan, he's still there. I mean, they're
Fafita and
both,
McMillan are still there, still holding out.
but everybody else, yikes. So that's rough. Um, their top running back, Coleman, left. Um,
Damon Williams is in the transfer portal after a
yeah,
week at Arizona.
yeah. And their top cornerback left. I mean, like it's not pretty in Tucson either. It's not quite as bad as Tuscaloosa and Seattle, but it's not great. I don't think I would pick Arizona to win the Big 12 now. Just gonna throw that out there.
Who would you pick though? Just out of curiosity.
Oh man, it's a great question. K State,
It's a safe
TCU.
option. I think, yeah, I think K State would actually probably be my pick too, especially with Avery
Yeah,
Johnson at the helm. That kid's a
yeah,
stud.
yeah. He's really good. So yeah, they got Matt Wells as a OC there now. Like I like that. That was a great move. So I mean, it's crazy. Like the transfer portal is crazy, but on the Hatchet deal, like he's going to arrive today. We're recording this Friday. He's going to arrive today, and then after that, we'll see how it goes. I would lean toward him being the Sooner, but I can't factually say that just because the brother part
Yeah.
makes it where it's not like because generally when transfer guys show up to their first visit, they don't leave. They go and they commit and they stay, and or they go home, pack up, and return. One of the two. I mean,
Yeah, I
that's
mean, shoot, if
uh,
Garen Hatchet comes on down to Norman today, Friday, he could be attending classes by Monday in a perfect world,
yeah,
right?
yeah, and that's my point. He has 2 weeks, so I was told that Oklahoma could petition for an extra spot, and it would be kind of like a Title IX type deal where they could get a waiver for an extra spot. I don't know how that works.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know how legit that is, but it came from a legit source. So I don't quite understand that, and I don't know if I'm misunderstanding how that was worded to me or not. I literally just repeated it word for word, so that is kind of don't I don't think I'm misunderstanding it. So, but if they could, I think Landon Hatchett would be the obvious choice. He was looked as him and his brother were going to be the two starting guards next year, right and left guard at Washington. So if you could pull both the Hatchet brothers, whoo, and you look at the only issue you would run into is the fact that you got Nwewu right there at the other guard, and the odds of him not starting are pretty slim.
Yeah. And
Um,
somebody like you bring in both of those guys. I think if you bring in one, you can keep everybody. You bring in both, somebody's leaving, maybe multiple guys. Because I think at that point it becomes clear to at least a player or two in that offensive line room. Okay,
you
there
ain't in the
is,
rotation.
yeah,
Yeah,
there is no path for me to start or play
yeah,
in 2024. So, you know what? Maybe that's good turnover. Maybe you
yeah. But
can cut.
who would you want to lose
Well,
in
and that's
this?
my, like, I don't think there's anybody, at least right now, that you would say, oh, I'd be like, yeah, shoot, send that guy packing,
No,
because all the dead weight in the upper class on the offensive line is already gone, right? If Aaron Parks were still around, that would be first on your list of guys that you would escort out of town. There's nobody that really fits that bill anymore.
that was just like
I mean, like, we
you
can
went for
call
the
a spade a
jugular with
spade.
Aaron Parks. Gum, dude. Well, you told the truth. You told the truth. So I think our listeners will appreciate that part. You were very up. He told facts, folks. Like the Aaron Parks deal has been a very odd fit for like 2 years
It's
now because
very well, and I
he
I
shows up and plays well, and then he just appears and this is like plays like crap and practices and everything after that. It's so weird.
and he I was, when I was down in Orlando at the All-American game, I was standing on the sidelines watching one of the practice sessions, as we do as members of the media, just congregating and chatting with a few of the national analysts from various sites. We were all kind of standing there together, just shooting the breeze, and we were talking about Daniel Akinkunmi. And at a certain point, one of the analysts, who shall remain nameless, turned to me and said, man, what happened to Aaron Parks? He was so good in high school.
Lazy. I'll say he's lazy. He was lazy in college. Laziness and Bill Bedenbow do not. It's like magnets of the same.
Oil and water.
Just never gonna connect. So got the same charge of magnet. trying to hit each other, go in the opposite direction. So, um, yeah, I like that. If you can add Garen Hatchet, whew, I mean, look, your starting offensive line now looks really good.
It does.
Like now it's you've got Spencer Brown, who I think if you can rein him in, or and when I say rein him in, like the odd part is that some of Bill Bedenbaugh's best offensive tackles have been the most penalized. When you
Yeah.
look back at it, Orlando Brown, um, Cody Ford was penalized quite a bit. Tyrese Robinson was penalized quite a bit. They were really good players though at Oklahoma. So um and Anton Harrison was penalized more than people actually realize. He would get hit with a hold here or there every
Oh
now and then
boy,
because
here
he was.
goes Drum trying to justify Spencer Brown and his issues.
Well, I mean, no,
That's the
no,
direction you're going though, right? Like,
no, I'm not justifying anything. My point is
no, but
is
like Spencer Brown is who you're kind of angling
yeah,
at.
yeah, yeah. That's where I'm going. Like he's got to get reined in some though, and if you
Yeah.
can rein him in just a little bit and let him keep his aggressiveness. And yes, folks, I I don't come from the cloth of just because an offensive line was penalized, it doesn't make them bad, in my opinion. I think there's certain aspects of penalizations, like you get a personal foul for being too aggressive, those type of things. I think you can live with because you're being aggressive, you're playing physical,
As long as you
and
don't
most
cheap shot somebody on the sideline like
correct, yeah,
Savion Bird.
yeah, that type of bullcrap's got to go. But the stuff that like Orlando Brown would get kind of in fights, Trent Williams would get in fights all day. He still does. He's one of the most penalized offensive linemen in the league, but because he's a Trent Williams is an asshole on the field, and
You have to
I
be
I love it.
offensive line.
I love watching him because of that. Lane Johnson is too. Creed Humphrey is too. So like I love those guys that play like that. And Spencer Brown plays a lot like that. He's got that nasty in him. And so if you can rein that in a little bit and control it to the extent where it's not costing you big penalties and big moments, you're going to be okay because he he's actually a pretty decent blocker and pretty decent offensive tackle. Played a
Well,
lot of snaps. And then
and
you've got go
I,
ahead.
well, and I was just gonna, all I was gonna add was that I think if you can successfully land Garen Hatchet, it takes a lot of the pressure off of every one of your other individual offensive
Yes.
line transfers to pan out, right? Because
Correct.
if Spencer Brown ends up being a waste of space at Oklahoma, or Michael Tarquin ends up being a waste of space at Oklahoma, or the same happens for Fabechi Nwau or whatever. Like if one of those guys, for whatever reason, does not pan out, then you have enough guys elsewhere that have played enough positions along the offensive line that Bill Bedenbaugh is going to be able to cobble something together that works, that functions, and that functions well without having to rely on X individual player
Mm-hmm.
to be the enforcer at pick one of the five positions.
Yeah, no, that's right. And he likes guys that can move around and play multiple positions. And look, Hatchet is 6'4", 6'5", 300 pounds. He's going to be able to play with his length and his size as long as he can move just good enough. He's going to be able to play maybe right tackle, in a pinch. And so your left tackle spot's going to be Jacob Sexton. We know this. Your left guard spot is probably going to be Garen Hatchet and or Fabici Nuawu. Your center is going to be Bates or Everett. And those two are going to be really good centers by the time they leave Oklahoma, by the way. They're both super, super talented. Um, and again, right guard is going to be Tarquin, Nuawu, or Hatchet. Your right tackle is going to be Brown, Taylor, or Tarquin. Like that's kind of where things sit right now. And then you have this assortment of freshmen that came in, Eddie Pierre Louis, number 29 overall player in the country. You've got the top offensive guard at the Under Armour game, right? And BJ Brooks, Eugene Brooks, who's going to skyrocket up in the rankings when they're redone, by the way, on every outlet.
Big time.
And Akankumi, who is going to move up in the rankings as well, might get a 4-star. And then you've got Autry, who I think is a project, but he's a 4-star because he's super athletic, super long, super rangy. And I'm trying to remember all the guys they have coming back on the offensive line. Who else do they have coming back? That obviously Jake Taylor, who I named,
Troy Everett.
Troy Everett, Sexton,
and that's
Bates.
pretty much it as far as experienced guys. Then you
but
got
there's
a bunch of the second teamers from last year. You got Bates,
Howland and Ozida.
Heath Ozida.
And those guys are going to probably be in the rotation. Howland, I don't know, but Ozida, I think, is going to be in the rotation at some point. And he might end up beating one of these transfers out. He's a good player.
And if so, great. You know, if Heath Ozida is in your starting lineup week 1 in 2024, that is an awesome thing for Oklahoma because that means he beat out, take your pick. Who's he starting opposite? He beat out everybody but the other starting guard, in essence, which could include Michael Tarquin and Garen Hatchet and potentially Jake Taylor. I think if a redshirt freshman is in the starting rotation for Bill Bedenbaugh next year, because of the fact that would necessarily require him to outperform dudes that have played a ton more college football than him, that can only be looked upon as a good thing. This episode of the OU Insider Under the Visor podcast is brought to you by Joymode. Guys, Joymode makes all-natural and science-backed supplements dedicated to helping men perform better across their core functions. It's a cutting-edge alternative to the little blue pill, and it comes in a palm-sized packet just like a pre-workout mix. All you have to do is mix it into 6 to 8 ounces of water, wait 45 minutes, and watch the magic unfold. Now, here are the game changers. All ingredients have been assessed in peer-reviewed journals, and all ingredients have been studied and researched in humans. You'll never go back to prescription or over-the-counter drugs after trying Joymode, which contains clinically supported doses of arginine nitrate, L-citrulline, Panax ginseng, and vitamin C. Not only does it enhance intimate moments, but it also supports cardiovascular health, athletic performance, and healthy blood pressure. Want to see your confidence skyrocket? Go to usejoymode.com for 20% off with code INSIDER. That's 20% off and free shipping with code INSIDER at usejoymode.com. Joymode, ingredients with integrity.
Very much so. So when you look at it from that perspective, and if you can add Garen Hatchet, who again is a very highly sought after transfer, by the way. There's a reason why Washington wanted him to stay very badly, because the expectation was that he was going to return and be an NFL guy for them this year. And if Oklahoma can add that, that's big. That's big. So all is not lost on the offensive line. All hasn't been lost. It hasn't been ideal as far as depth, but it hasn't been all lost. As long as Oklahoma can stay healthy, and I know that's kind of like the big if moving forward, if they can stay healthy with what they have on campus, you're going to be all right, as long as they can mesh together, and Bill Bedenbaugh's going to make it mesh. He's never not made it mesh. There's never been a year where you look at it and you go, that offensive line is absolutely bad. No, never happened. So, it's in an ideal world, just adding Garen Hatchet, I think, solidifies so many things on so many levels for this offensive line, and we'll see how it pans out after this weekend when he takes his visit to Oklahoma. So on that note, and we've talked about NIL just ad nauseum, dude, but there was a tweet yesterday, and I want to get into this. You didn't think I was going to go there.
If
you didn't think I was going to go there.
If you can call that method of...
We're just two sycophants talking here. So
if you can call that method of social media activity tweeting, then yes, I suppose that was a tweet.
Yeah. And the fact I was with a source yesterday that absolutely said said tweeter, zero connections within the world of NIL and all that type of stuff, was just kind of funny. Um, and this person is in the world of NIL and among other things. So, yeah, I thought that was funny. Thought it was funny. Thought it was funny. Um, I don't know what more we can add to that, but people know what people know. If you're on Twitter, you know what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
And that tweet got dissected by numerous media members and numerous people that know the world of that, in which they were pointing a finger at with the NIL, and subpar is not what you would label it. When, if you know the number at which Oklahoma tries to stay between, the two numbers they try to stay between as far as roster and what they generally try to get at, you wouldn't think it, because there are plenty of other programs that fans deem as great NIL players that don't even come close to that because they don't pay their whole roster. They pay 20 guys, 15, 20 guys on the roster. They pay them a lot, but that's only going to work for a short period of time. And that's where you don't have a lot of turnover at an Oklahoma, at a Georgia, at an Alabama. Well, you do now at Alabama, but previously you didn't at Alabama, at Ohio State. And the thing people also need to look at, and I think it made clear with Saban, Parker. I think it's made clear with DeBoer at Washington, right? It's not all NIL that keeps the players. Fans are starting to come out and realize, guess what?
Coaching
Who's
matters.
coaching matters, which means those players are sticking around at Oklahoma, and you don't see a lot of attrition now that BV's got his culture put in. They lost, what, 13, 14 guys to the portal this year, right? Something like that.
I believe the final number was 18.
18. 17 were forced out.
Yep.
Were forced out. So I want people to understand that. Like, if you're keeping 70 people out of 85 on your roster each year, you're going to win a lot of football games because you have consistency within the roster. You have the ability to develop, and you've got the ability to have cohesiveness at every position. And that's where coaches like Saban, like Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, Brent Venables, Steve Sarkisian, and even Kalen DeBoer at Washington were able to, and obviously the champs, right, at Michigan, they're able to keep everything together. And if those that aren't watching, I'm putting my two fingers, like my hands together, because the players want to play for those staffs. So they don't leave. They don't want to leave. And I think that's what we're seeing now. Like, Saban left, and now everybody's trying to leave Alabama, which they came to play for Saban. These kids come to play for BV. It's not all NIL. Who's coaching at that school matters. And we're seeing that play out live in front of us. So I think people need to take a step back and be like, oh, NIL, NIL. Yeah. That matters. That matters. But so is who's coaching that program. And that's where I think that the teams that I named, you got Notre Dame with Matt Freeman. Like, I think those teams are going to be long lasting. And I was talking to somebody, like I said yesterday, I don't like the Missouri thing, Parker. They got a lot of turnover. Like, that's going to be hard. Like, as good as they were and as good as the players that returned are, right? Can you definitively say that they're not going to lose 4 games? Like, You can't definitively tell me right there by looking at their schedule and be like, there's zero chance they don't lose 4 or 5 games. And I'm not saying they're going to. I'm just saying when you have a lot of turnover, you just never know. As good as the talent is that you return, there's also that level of cohesiveness that you've got to put together. Same thing with Ole Miss. As great as that talent is, are you going to be able to keep all those egos at bay? In 1 year, Parker, can you do that in 1 year? Get everybody to just be all on the same page in 1 year? Like that's a valid question, right?
Mm-hmm. No doubt about it. Now, like, I think the common denominator that you see with schools that unload the chamber, if you will, via NIL to try and make a 1 year run, kind of try to put all the pieces together to compete for a championship for one single year. Those are all programs, Brandon, and I don't like this isn't a dig. I'm just trying to be straightforward, like completely objective here. I there's a sense of I'm trying to think of a better word or maybe a more palatable word. But the word that's coming to mind for me is desperation. Like a program like Ole Miss, for instance. Ole Miss has been and also ran in the SEC for decades. And now here they are in 2024, loading up, adding the likes of Walter Nolan via the transfer board. And like, I would hope everybody listening understands if you keep up with NIL in the slightest, you know how much it cost, or about how much it cost, or at minimum how much it cost to get Walter Nolan to Oxford, Mississippi. You're loading up for what you hope will be a memorable 1 year run with a bunch of dudes that you have in essence rented via the transfer portal. And guess what? If it pans out, great. If you make the college football playoff, great. But unless you win the national championship, guess what? You're going to be walking off the field at the end of the season with the exact same feeling, with the exact same demeanor as all but one other team in college football. We going, man, we didn't get it done. And then you
Yeah.
have to start all over from scratch once again because all the guys that you rented in the portal are moving on. And so that's not a philosophy that I think should be espoused, and not one that is espoused by teams that have a tradition and a standard of winning and competing for championships. You do not see Alabama right now, even in response to what's happening, losing guys like Julian Sayin via the transfer portal, losing guys like Caleb Downs and Caden Proctor. Alabama is not whipping out the money bags and trying to make all the moves that they feel they need to make in order to compete for championships. No, because they trust that in Kalen DeBoer, they have a guy that's going to coach them to championship contention. And coaching still matters because there's no better example than the two programs that just played for a national championship, Michigan and Washington. Brandon, those teams played for the national championship not because they backed up the Brinks truck on the recruiting trail, not because they backed the truck up in the transfer portal, but because they identified guys that fit their scheme. They identified guys that were bought in, wanted to be a part of the program, wanted to work, wanted to make themselves better, make the guys around them better, and they were willing to submit to the leadership and the vision of a coaching staff rife with excellent coaches. Washington and Michigan played for the national title last week because they were incredibly well coached, not because they had the most talent on paper. Because I promise you, Brandon, before the season, maybe Michigan would have factored into that conversation a little bit. But if you'd asked anybody before this season who has the most talent on in college football on paper, Michigan and Washington were not the two teams that anybody worth their salt in this industry would have pointed to.
Yeah.
Coaching matters.
It
Culture
does.
matters.
It does. But again, just two sycophants talking. So what do we know? Um, Parker, you're not even gonna look up, man. You come after people all the time, and I'm having fun here. No,
Who do you need me to come after someone?
no, I just said we're just two sycophants talking, and you had no response just because that.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
we're just a couple of local mouthpieces. What do we know?
yeah, yeah. Anyways, so at the end of the day, look, I Oklahoma, and I look, Keegan Ray knew put it out there, but and I said this on our last podcast, but he put it out there on Twitter. 2025 is where Oklahoma fans need to look at, and then you go, okay, if you're not playing for not just the playoffs, but to win a game or two in the playoffs that year, then there's something wrong. Like that's where the issue lies because of how they've recruited, how they built the roster. To me, with 22, 23, 24 classes, and then you add a top notch 25 class like we expect, if you can sprinkle in some transfers here or there that can flip the narrative at a position or two, particularly linebacker, which I don't think you're going to have to do because they've recruited so well linebacker, right? I know you're going to lose Billy Bowman, but you got Peyton Bowen coming in right there. You've got Robert Spears Jennings, right? Like, I don't feel like there's going to be this mass issue. Similarly, at corner, Woody Washington will be gone, but you're going to have Gentry Williams and like 15 other 4 and 5 stars there waiting in the wings to come in and fill that spot. So to me, at the end of the day, 2025 is where you look at, yes, you're losing 3 really good NFL guys in Stutzman, Bowman, Washington. But the talent that's coming in behind that is legit. And you would expect now, after you've gotten, what, 4 or 5 straight top 10 classes, there shouldn't be an issue. It should be just reload at that point. And you're reloading 3 spots, but you just gained a lot of experience in 2024 with a lot of young guys in 24 and 23 that are playing their first years, right? They're finally getting out there on both sides of the ball. That's why 25 should be where you look at and you go, okay, this is the year. If Venables does not compete for the playoffs and or win a game or two, doesn't have to win the whole thing, but compete and prove that that program is taking that other leap. Okay, that is where I think fans need to look at. 25 is where it's at. Would you agree with that, Parker? Like 25 is where it should be at, as long as everything stays chalk and there's not a lot of transfers out, which you don't expect. But you also didn't expect Caden Green to leave. So,
I would agree.
it happens. Even when you offer them more than everybody else, it happens.
It'd be like that sometimes.
Sometimes it does. So, yeah, no, I like where the program's headed. I even think, again, like I said, I was talking to somebody yesterday. They thought the floor was 7-5, 8-4, and they expect 9-3, 10-2. Like they're just like us. And this person knows ball. I can tell you that. And if that really is the case, and we all kind of feel that's the case, if Oklahoma doesn't make the playoffs this year, is it a disappointment in 24?
No, it's not a disappointment.
Oh
And
man,
that's
you fans are going to throw tomatoes at you right now.
okay. That's fine.
It's
Like
always a disappointment if we're not winning natties. Playing for them.
it's year one in the SEC. That schedule has been rated the second toughest in America.
Yeah.
I think if you win 9 games next year, you'll take that. Anything beyond that is a success. And if you get to the double-digit win threshold, you are probably in the 12-team field for the
And
college football playoff.
9 might get you in because of how tough your schedule is.
Yeah, but
Just might.
again, not something I'm counting on. And if if I need to face a few tomatoes for that, okay. But to me, like I'm not going to I will lean towards setting the bar too low I will err in the direction of setting it too low than setting it too high.
Agreed.
With year one in the SEC and a first year starting quarterback, admittedly a good one in Jackson Arnold. So I will say 9 wins, 9 to 10 went kind of similar to this year. 9 to 10 wins is what I expect. If you can get to 10, great. If you hit 9, I think you feel like that season is up to par with expectations. If you get 10, and I think there's a path for the Sooners to get 10. I think
There's
that
still
can very
the
feasibly
bowl
happen.
game still counts too, so you could go to the bowl game and
No,
get
I'm
10.
saying regular
Yeah.
season. I think they can win
Okay.
10 games in the regular season. I think they're capable of that.
Agreed.
And if they do, then the season is officially a success. You can check that box, and you're probably, depending on how things go on conference championship week, I think you're probably in the field of 12.
Agreed. I I I'm with you. Like I think the floor for Oklahoma is 8-4. I think the ceiling is 10-2. I think that's probably where they're going to be, is somewhere in that range. If they're 11-1, then BV better get a then that staff better get a hopping
Yep,
big
pay them
raise
whatever they
too.
want.
Yeah.
You go 11-1 year one in the SEC, pay those coaches whatever they want,
Yeah.
because if
And
this
or
goes back to the
donate.
conversation that we've had time and again as far as continuity on staff, you can keep this staff together in the long run. Maybe that's not entirely feasible. Obviously, there will be offers that come along for your
Mhm.
assistants to go be coordinators or even head coaches elsewhere. But the longer you can keep your nucleus together on that coaching staff, man, that sets you up exceedingly well to build something, to build a program, not just a team, but build a program that is one of the SEC's finest.
Yeah. No, I agree.
A team is 1 year. A program, that's indefinite.
Yep, agreed. Real quickly, the junior day coming up next week. There's also a big shock doctor 7-on-7 in Dallas. There's a lot going on that we're gonna have coverage of on OUinsider.com. The list continues to grow for the 27th, and there's several 5 stars showing up. There's a horde of 4 stars showing up in 25. And then you've got the March junior day where 26 and 25 will show up again. And then you've got spring game. Like we're going to have like, there's so much coverage coming. And not to mention, you have a top 15 basketball program and just beat West Virginia. They've got a game against Cincinnati, I believe, tomorrow. We're recording this on Friday. They're going to Cincinnati. They win that. They're back to 3-2 in the Big 12, which is really good considering the Big 12 has like what was there 9, 10 top 25 teams, something like that, something stupid. Like it's so good. That league is so good at basketball. And Oklahoma is quickly working their way up the seeding. I think Lenardi had them at a 5 seed, potential 4 seed right now. You win at Cincinnati, you're probably a 4 seed. If you can somehow win 21, 22 games, which I think this Oklahoma team can do, Parker, you're probably a 2 or 3 seed at that point with their schedule and with the tier 1 wins that they're going to have. Doesn't matter that the tier 1 wins maybe home game wins.
Yeah, and what I've
You have
learned the last couple of years with the Big 12 in particular is you don't count your chickens before they hatch.
correct.
And like there is a lot of peril to navigate between now and Selection Sunday for Oklahoma. But what we
Yep.
can say about this team, without question, it's like it's staring you right there in the face. It's unambiguous. This is a much better team than Porter Moser had last year or the year prior.
Yeah. This
And
is a team. And they return most everybody next year too. That's the crazy part. Like
yeah, if you can, well, and the basketball portal will no doubt be there. There will be schools that try and poach some of your dudes.
McCollum. Yeah.
and there will be the potential for several of your guys. I would say Uzan, McCollum, Owe. They're both going to face decisions as to whether they want to take their chances in the NBA draft or come
Yeah.
back. But
Yeah.
yeah, I like this team, man. They're exciting, and they got an it factor that they have lacked in the recent past.
Yeah. They're fun to watch as well. But anyways, we're going to have all that covered for you. We'll have another podcast up for you guys later on. Probably Sunday or Monday. That's what we're shooting for. So, um, hope you guys join us there. But that's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. If you're not a member of this YouTube channel, subscribe. Coach Clinton has a great breakdown of Zach Alley and his defense and what he brings to the table, running Brent Venables' defense to the University of Oklahoma. So make sure you're subscribed. We got that up. There's a lot of basketball coverage. Softball is about to kick off. Baseball is about to kick off. Obviously, spring football, lots of recruiting for football, lots of off-season talk, lots of spring ball about to kick off. Like Parker and I, we will have that. Jesse and Brody will have the basketball coverage for you. Jesse and Brian will also have football coverage, off-season coverage, X's and O's talk, all that type of stuff on their podcast, The Oklahoma Drill. And there's just so much going on this channel on a daily basis. We're going to have interviews at 7-on-7s, at camps, all that. It's all going to be right here on this OU Insider YouTube channel. So subscribe. Also, if you want to stay ahead of the game, like there's a lot more to the Garen Hatchet stuff than we talked about on here. OU Insider is where it's at. It's $9.99 right now. We'll get you a whole month and you can test us out. Or you can just pay $100, $99.95, and you can get us all the way through January 20th of 2025. If that's how you want to go, that's a great route. It's a perfect route to go. You get all of the SEC season. You get all of spring. You get the champion barbecue, party in the palace. You get all the official visits. You get all the 7-on-7s, the Under Armour camps, the opening, the rivals camps, like everything that entails that we will be at covering all of OU's top targets. We got it covered for you right here and right there on OU Insider VIP. Right, OU Insider VIP is going to be way more entailed, way more detailed, and you're going to know way more of what's going behind the scenes as far as team stuff, as far as who's doing what in the training sessions, who's doing what in 7-on-7s, who's doing what in the spring practices. Like we're going to have all that over there. And so make sure you're covered there. Fall camp, SEC Media Day, all that's going to be over there as well. Just behind the scenes talk galore. And we'll have that for you right there on OU Insider VIP. All right. For Parker Thune, my name is Brandon Drum. That's going to do it for this version of the OU Insider Under the Visor Sooners podcast. You guys have a blessed day.